Hi, my name is Justin and I'm with Ascend Finance. Today we're going to cover Chapter 13 bankruptcy in Arkansas. What percentage of Chapter 13 bankruptcies do you think actually end successfully? What I mean by that is actually get you out of the debt. Only 38.8%. Why? It's often related to cost and many other variables, so here's what we'll cover in today's video. First is a quick Chapter 13 bankruptcy introduction. Next is your monthly Chapter 13 plan payment. Third is going to be the Chapter 13 bankruptcy costs in Arkansas. Fourth is going to be the Chapter 13 bankruptcy process in Arkansas. Fifth is going to be the Chapter 13 bankruptcy pros and cons. And finally, sixth is the Chapter 13 bankruptcy alternatives. Before we begin, and I go too further here, please understand Chapter 13 bankruptcy in Arkansas is complex. So feel free to ask a question below or leave any comments, and we'll do our best to respond as quickly as possible. Also, please leave a like below if you enjoy the video, as it always is encouraging for us. So let's cover a quick introduction. Number one is, what is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy? Chapter 13 bankruptcy is known as the wage earner's plan. That's why, because it allows individuals with a regular income to pay back some or all of their debt. The Chapter 13 plan is a monthly payment for often 3 or 5 years. People like Chapter 13 bankruptcy because it can stop wage garnishment, foreclosure, and provide legal protection from creditors. One of the most important things to understand is the affordability of a Chapter 13. Basically, how much you have to pay each month and how long you're going to be in the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. The reason that your Chapter 13 plan payment is so important is that it may actually be more expensive than your current debt obligations. That said, it could also be less expensive. It really depends. We got this question so often that we actually built a free Chapter 13 bankruptcy calculator based on the actual bankruptcy forms. You can estimate your Chapter 13 plan payment based on your zip code using the Arkansas Chapter 13 calculator in the description below. Let's discuss how your Chapter 13 plan payment works in Arkansas, the various costs and fees, the Chapter 13 bankruptcy process in Arkansas, the pros and cons, and the alternatives. So, second, your Chapter 13 plan payment in Arkansas. Let's talk about your Chapter 13 plan payment in Arkansas, because there are various factors of what goes into it. First is the disposable income. The amount of income you have each month after subtracting allowable payroll deductions, the allowable living expenses from your gross monthly income, is what calculates your disposable income. You can check on the government's means testing website. You can find the local standards for Arkansas for local housing and utilities and transportation costs. Assets. So in some cases, the value of your assets could increase the amount of your Chapter 13 plan if your assets have a large amount of non-exempt equity. For example, if you own a home with a great deal of equity above the Arkansas bankruptcy exemptions, your Chapter 13 plan payment could be much higher. Now, debts. Some debts must be paid in full through a Chapter 13 plan. Priority on secured debts like taxes, alimony, child support, administration costs, while other creditors may receive only partial payments, including debts like medical bills, credit card debt, personal loans. Chapter 13 plans typically include mortgage payments and car loan payments. Recent financial transactions is also important, because some recent financial transactions could actually impact your Chapter 13 plan. Now, duration. So duration is also important, is an important thing to consider in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Big question is, are you eligible for a 3 or 5 year plan? Your average monthly income compared to the Arkansas median income guideline is used to help determine whether you qualify for 3 or 5 years. Below in the description and stated here as well is the median income guideline for Arkansas for cases filed after May 15th, 2021. You can also check the government means testing website for up-to-date data as it changes every 6 months. Now, third, what is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy in Arkansas? So the main fees to consider in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy in Arkansas is the attorney fee, trustee fee, filing fees, bankruptcy courses, and any of the miscellaneous costs. So the Chapter 13 bankruptcy calculator below also accounts for those fees, so let's cover those one by one. First, attorney fees. The Chapter 13 bankruptcy attorney fee in Arkansas is estimated to be around $2,800 to $3,000. So the fee may depend on district. So a Chapter 13 bankruptcy attorney may be different in Fort Smith compared to Fayetteville. Just really depends on the district. Now, Chapter 13 trustee fees. Another cost is the Chapter 13 trustee fees. So a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is often 3 or 5 years, as we stated, so there are many administration tasks for the trustee to do. But here is a breakdown of the Arkansas Chapter 13 bankruptcy trustee fees, as it appears to be around 6.8%. Just as a reference, this can result in thousands of dollars in trustee fees. Now, finally, the filing fee. So the bankruptcy filing fee is actually only around $313. This fee is actually paid directly to the bankruptcy court. It's a national fee and not specific to Arkansas. There are miscellaneous fees such as the bankruptcy courses and getting the court as well. So let's now cover the Chapter 13 bankruptcy process. The process is important to understanding when filing bankruptcy. So here are some questions to consider in the process to file. First, understand the different types of bankruptcies. So most folks will file a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, but it's important to know the differences. Chapter 7 is often cheaper and provides faster debt relief, but each has its own pros and cons. Second, understand which debts will be eliminated. Many unsecured debts are eliminated in a Chapter 13, but it's good to understand which ones are and which are not. Third, estimate your Chapter 13 bankruptcy plan payment. It's good to get an idea of what your 13 could look like for you specifically. 4, understand alternatives to filing Chapter 13 bankruptcy. The main alternatives to Chapter 13 bankruptcy are Chapter 7, debt settlement, debt management, and debt payoff planning. 5, determine whether to hire a Chapter 13 bankruptcy attorney to file bankruptcy. 6, take a credit counseling course. 7, file bankruptcy petition and other forms. 8, a Chapter 13 bankruptcy trustee is assigned to your bankruptcy filing. 9, attend the Chapter 13 bankruptcy court meetings. 10, take a second mandatory debt education course. 11, continue to make your Chapter 13 monthly plan payments. And 12, you'll receive your bankruptcy discharge. As you can see, there's a whole slew of steps in the process, but some of the processes are just understanding whether you'd like to file bankruptcy or not. The 5th, let's go over the Chapter 13 bankruptcy pros and cons. We'll first cover the pros and cons, first pro is it can prevent foreclosure so that you can keep your home by catching up with the past due mortgage payments over 3 to 5 yees. Another pro, it can stop wage garnishments, seizures, levies, or any debt collection lawsuits. Pro, it can stop creditor harassment. Another pro, it can stop wage garnishments, as I was saying before. You may also get a discharge on a second mortgage through a Chapter 13. Another pro, you may be able to pay less than what you owe to satisfy the secured lien on your vehicle. Another pro, catch up on past due child support and alimony. Another pro could be getting rid of unsecured debts for pennies on the dollar. You may be able to resolve tax debts and IRS problems. And finally, another pro would be that you can protect property from being sold to pay the debts. Now, let's cover the downsides. One con is the cost of the Chapter 13 bankruptcy can sometimes be expensive. And it's often 3 or 5 years. It can have a negative impact on your credit score, and it can reflect negatively on your credit report as well. 2 other cons are, first, low payment flexibility. It may have a difficulty variability of what your payment would look like. And finally, your monthly plan payment can increase if your income increases. Now we have an idea of the pros and cons. I want to jump into Chapter 13 bankruptcy alternatives. So now let's cover the common Chapter 13 bankruptcy alternatives in this video here. So first, let's cover Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So Chapter 7 bankruptcy is often the least expensive option and the fastest form of debt relief. You can get rid of debt relief in as little as 120 days, and there's no Chapter 13 trustee, and the attorney fees are also a lot less expensive because the cases are less complex. Many people file Chapter 7 when they qualify and are not at risk of losing any belongings in the bankruptcy. Second, let's cover debt settlement. So debt settlement is where a company or you negotiate and settle debt with your creditors. The goal is to reduce the payment burden of all your debt by around 50%, which will help lower your monthly payment, thus providing debt relief. There are definitely pros and cons of debt settlement, so definitely do your research. Third, let's cover debt management. Debt management is often where a nonprofit credit counseling agency negotiates the interest rate on your current debt. They may negotiate a high interest credit card on a 25% interest rate down to 9%. The goal is to reduce your monthly payment. You may also be on a 3 or 5 year payment plan. I hope this video has been helpful in your understanding of filing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. You can visit the Chapter 13 bankruptcy calculator below to estimate your planned payment. Did you learn anything, something new from this video? Please click the subscribe button, as we're going to put more and more videos out to hopefully help you make the most informed decision. Now, I'd like to turn it over to you. What are some questions you have about filing Chapter 13 bankruptcy? Please comment below, and I'll do my best to respond as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching.